I firmly believe we all have gifts, superpowers, if you will, that have carried us through life and helped us get a lot of different results that we do ourselves a disservice in not applying to our relationships to make them better. See, people are always talking about, hey, focusing on the weak points, right? Fix those to make your relationship better. And where that's true, you'll actually get equally, if not way better results when you focus on your strengths, pouring those into your relationship in different areas, handling conflicts and things like that, and it will transform your relationship in a way you couldn't imagine. So right now, I'm going to show you how to identify what your superpower is and how to use it effectively in your relationship. So the first thing you got to ask yourself is, what are you already great at, right? What has always been a benchmark strength for you that's gotten you really good results in your work life or professional life, right? So for instance, are you good at like planning? Maybe you're great at, talking through things and breaking stuff down to put you guys all on the same page. See, we have this habit to separate personal, professional, and romantic life, right? Which makes sense. You get it, we get it. They don't all exist in the same way, but you're the same person in all these areas. And so often we do ourselves a disservice by not looking at the tools that we have that has helped us in other areas of our life, and we don't apply it in another part of our life where it could be really significant, especially in our relationships, right? So your first step, if you're going to identify what your superpower is that can really transform your relationship, is by asking yourself, what am I already great at, right? What do I really excel at? So get to thinking about the skills you use in your personal or work life, right? So are you really good at planning? Are you good at problem solving? Are you good at communication? Maybe empathy, leadership, right? It's an array of things. So you got to ask yourself the question of, what gifts or what abilities, what strengths have I always used to succeed in life, right? In other areas of my life, whether it be professional or just personal, right? What have I always leaned on that's been like this benchmark for me that's always gotten me through and always made sure I crushed it in this area or made me really good in this lane of something that other people typically aren't that great in, right? Really identify where your strength points are, right? Because that's going to be the focal point of what your superpower is in your relationship once applied appropriately. So for instance, if you come to recognize your superpower, your ability is planning, right? Then a great thing you can do in your relationship is take the lead on facilitating conversations around your future vision and future goals together, your shared goals you have together with your partner, right? I mean, think about how much you become extremely valuable to your partner whenever you apply an ability like that usually you use maybe to, get some sort of a work project done. And instead you're using it for your life together with your partner. Or maybe you're great at planning things out for your friends and family members to put together events or whatever the case is. To where now you're bringing that towards the evolution and the progression of the bond you're building with the person you're planning to spend your life with. Maybe you're really good with your words, right? Maybe you're great at talking through things and doing the whole nine, right? So maybe you take lead in having just weekly check-ins with your partner, right? To talk through where you guys are with things, right? And to see where how you're both feeling about something and to talk through it in a concise way and maybe bring clarity to situations when they happen. Or maybe you see things from afar that your partner hasn't caught yet and you want to address it up front to make sure you guys are on the same page, to where you take more of the proactive approach to making sure you guys are always dialed in a very good way communication wise, to where it's less misinterpretations of things, right? That will cut down the even possibility of arguments and conflict stirring up more frequent, right? Whenever you're able to get ahead of it and make sure you guys are always locked in here on the same page, as long as you're both operating in a healthy way, right? And you not having, poor intent and things like that, then now you can almost guarantee that your relationship stays virtually argument free, as long as you are always able to keep that chain of fluidity open, because you were really good at making sure you guys are on the same page. You're good at making sure that you can speak in their perspective and understand and relay back to them how you get them, and then make sure that they understand you. My gosh, that will alleviate for so many issues, because one of the biggest reasons for conflict in relationships is miscommunication. Maybe you're neutrally empathetic, right? So you're really good at showing empathy for yourself, but definitely for others, right? You're good at dialing into how they feel and, and validating them. And you're good at validating yourself and making sure that you get validated. Maybe you're good in those ways. So when it comes to arguments, when you do find yourself in a heated conversation or what have you, apply that ability to be empathetic to the circumstance to bring calmness to the relationship or to the dialogue, to the conversation, right? To ease the tension. It's usually when one person maybe triggers things in a emotionally elevated way in an argument, and then the other person responds to that with equal matching energy, that conversations get out of hand and they go from debates to arguments, right? But if you're able to be that safe, empathetic, safe space in the dialogue, you stand to create way better of an opportunity to keep things level-headed, so you guys be more productive through your conversations. Or if something happens and your partner does become triggered, you can be the one bringing them back down, so you guys can still stay in a productive state, versus something that becomes destructive and you wind up adding fuel on the fire and the situation becomes much worse. So lean into your ability to be empathetic, to where you stop thinking about yourself as much in the moment to want to be defensive or want to react and respond to defend yourself, and use that gift, that tool that says, okay, how do I usually show empathy to a good friend that's going through something with me, right? How do I usually handle them? Let me apply it here and just strip, my focusing on me and how I'm feeling about what they're saying out of the equation for a second. Not that it doesn't matter, but I can bring them back around to talk about how I feel about what they're saying, if I can at least allow them to make sure they feel heard right now. So lean into the ability. Or maybe you're great at problem solving, to where whenever you're in a conflict situation with your partner, you need to be the one that's pulling your ego out of it and focusing on debating and trying to prove a point more than your partner's point, or better than your partner's point, and focus more on the solutions. That's one of the best times, the best places for you to actually exercise that tool. Don't just use that ability when it comes to you maybe being at work and you're problem solving with the team and all that stuff, or leading a team, maybe you're a manager or something like that. Or even when you're out with a group of friends or something and you guys are trying to solve an obstacle you guys are facing, and you're great at using your problem solving abilities, then turn that same ability into the relationship. And notice, you're probably really good at solving problems when you're out with the friends or at the job, because you're not as emotionally impacted by those situations, even though they're important. So your intellectual faculties can work a lot more efficient. And so you dial in, and that's how you're able to be really good at working through the problem and flipping it in and out, because your heart posture, right? There's nothing emotionally triggering to you that's in this equation, where it's easier to let your intellect do its job and be more refined and be more concise and be more productive and constructive in your problem solving abilities, right? Versus whenever we sometimes get into heated debates or arguments with our partners, those faculties goes out the window. We get into more of a primal space. All that problem solving great ability that you have starts to kind of go dormant, and then you're not utilizing it as much, because now you're getting into the fight, flight, or freeze kind of response, right? So actually you're reacting instead of responding. You get into reactionary mode. But if you can in those moments remember, hey, I'm really good at problem solving, so let me stop just trying to be right or try to prove my partner wrong, or even trying to fight for them just to listen to me. And let me start thinking for a second as what the solution could be. Let me start speaking from a solution-based place, to where now my partner will more likely stop trying to fight against me, because they're hearing me trying to talk towards a solution, not towards trying to point a finger at them, which in turn usually allows them to stop pointing as much of the finger at you. Give them some time, because it's not like it's an overnight or instantaneous thing. But whenever you start becoming more solution focused, you get more solution based results, instead of focusing on debating, and you keep debating and fighting forever seemingly sometimes. So what am I really saying to do here at the end of the day? At the end of the day, I'm saying you want to change your perspective, have a mindset shift, to show up as the best versions of yourself in your relationship in any areas where it can be applicable when it is needed most. And what I mean by show up as your best version of yourself, because I know most people will say, well, yeah, I always try to do that. That's always my goal. But like I said, we separate how we show up in our maybe our personal life and maybe our professional life versus our romantic life. And a lot of the abilities we have, maybe we're really good at making friends and networking and creating bonds and so forth, right? Or if it is in that professional world where you're really good at the planning and stuff like that, those are really big strengths of ours, and we've cultivated those since we were younger, probably, right? You got really good at that thing early on in life, and you learned how to master it as you went through. But oftentimes when we get into our romantic dynamics and we're trying to show up as the best version of ourselves, we're thinking about how to be the best partner, how to make sure we just communicate together well and all the things, and that's great. But how about pairing it with the strengths I have in other areas of my life that I don't think of applying to my relationship, or at least not breaking down how I'm able to do what I do in these other areas of my life with this strength. Because again, a lot of the strengths we do have, and the superpowers that we do have when it comes to emotionally stimulated conversations with our partners that can really be heightened in all those things, those gifts we have, those powers, we sometimes don't use them effectively anymore, or we have a hard time using them because we're more emotional than we are intellectual at that moment. See, recognize it's always easy to utilize your gifts and the strengths you have whenever it's not emotionally draining for you. Whenever you're not emotionally charged from a conversation, it's much easier to be good at thinking through the problem solving, right? It's much easier to be able to use the right words and everything else, to plan things out, to be empathetic and be patient whenever the person you're talking to is not saying something that makes you feel emotionally triggered because they're saying something at you or that references you, versus you going to go talk to a dear friend and you're really great at being empathetic and validating them, but they're also talking to you about their relationship situation with someone else that has nothing to do with you, to where you don't have any emotional investment, to where it's easy for you to use those gifts. So whenever you're in these heated moments or these tougher moments with your partner, that's when you got to ask yourself, how do I do it whenever I'm not in an emotionally charged conversation? How can I bring that to this circumstance to make us better, to get through this, to, resolve things so much more efficient, to be more productive, to grow together, all the things? And how do I use the same ability where I'm usually only thinking about it in a business professional sense? How do I apply the same tool in my relationship to get our relationship goals? Look, relationships don't change. The foundation of relationships will always be the same across the board, no matter what we're talking about. The only thing that changes is the focal point and the attention behind the relationship. Business relationships, professional relationships, and romantic relationships all operate on the same premise. The only thing that's different is what your intended focus is. One may be to build a beautiful partnership together to make a lot of money together professionally or in a business sense. One may be to build a lifelong, best friend type of dynamic where you have someone that always got your back and you got theirs, and you're just, you're like brother and sister, or you're that close to each other, or what have you. And then the other one is about having someone be your lover, right? And being happy ever after with your forever person, right? But they all have the same foundations of how you handle one another in the relationship type of sense of it. So use those gifts that you have in other areas and think, how am I not applying this to my relationship? Where can I apply it? And how do I start doing it yesterday? If you need help figuring out what your superpower is that could be really used to transform your relationship in ways you couldn't imagine, then email or DM me the word coaching and we will get to work, as long as you're truly ready to put that work in. If you're not ready for one-on-one coaching, don't have the time, space, or maybe even the resources, then at least email or DM me the word revival to join my Relationship Revival Hub community, where you can learn the same things I teach my clients one-on-one at your own pace, on your own time. Either way, do something to get in the race. Let's get it.